Joining me now, Politico White House correspondent and Playbook co-author and MSNBC political contributor Eugene Daniels and the Wall Street Journal senior political correspondent Molly Ball. Welcome to you both. We'll go ladies first, Molly, because in your latest article, you describe a panicked nation on edge heading into the final week of the race. What are people from both camps telling you? How are their anxieties different from past elections?
Yeah, well, as I spoke to, supporters of both candidates and also just regular rank and file voters at an early voting center outside of Atlanta, there was really this common theme over and over. They said this does not feel like a normal election. This does not feel like a regular four-year event where everything goes back to normal and everything's going to be okay afterwards, no matter what. And you hear that in the heightened rhetoric of the candidates. And in fact, we have some polling data to back this up as well in our new Wall Street Journal poll that was just released this past week. 87% of the electorate said that they fear there will be permanent damage to the country if their candidate loses. And pluralities of both Harris voters and Trump voters say that they will be frightened if the other candidate wins. So there's this sense, of existential peril for our democracy, for the nation. And you combine that with the fact that this looks like it's probably going to be the closest election in history, and nobody really has any clue which way it's going to go. And it really adds up to a very, very tense feeling.
Yeah. That's the title of the article, let me tell you. So Eugene, in her final pitches to voters, Kamala Harris is leaning harder into warning that Trump is a threat to the country. On Tuesday, she'll be delivering her closing argument at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., precisely where Trump held his Stop the Steal rally before the January 6th Capitol riot. Is this the right closing message for her?
That's a question for the campaign, but I think they believe it is, right? When you look at how her very short campaign and has operated, when she started out, she wasn't talking too much about Donald Trump, right? She was talking a lot about the things that he'd done, but she wasn't leaning into kind of the he wants to be a dictator message. That started to change. The campaign and aides continue to tell me that changed because they feel like Donald Trump changed. If you do look at his language over the last few months, it has gotten darker. It has gotten more dystopian. And even aides around him will agree with something like that, right? You can watch the rallies of Donald Trump and see that for yourself. And so now you have Vice President Harris on Tuesday at the Ellipse. Obviously, they chose that for a reason, because one thing they're trying to do is remind people of the feelings they had during the Trump years, right? When most people felt like it was at best chaotic, right, from day to day. As Trump was tweeting things like Little Rocket Man to the dictator of North Korea. They also continue to have to kind of explain, one, what she says she will do, and two, more importantly, who she is, because of how much bio work they've had to do in such a short period of time. That message of, look at Donald Trump, it has to be tied to, the campaign says, what she's going to do. And so they're trying to strike this balance in this last speech here. And we've seen some of this. I was in Friday at the Beyonce rally, the Kamala Harris rally in Texas. And she previewed quite a bit of this as well, right? Talking about if Donald Trump is in office, then no one's safe from a national abortion ban, right? Things that they're trying to make clear and tie together throughout the electorate.
Yeah. I do understand the slip there with it being a Beyonce rally. I think a lot of people would. That said, Molly, in a few hours, Donald Trump will be holding that big rally and fundraiser at New York's Madison Square Garden. Many political observers, including Hillary Clinton, are accusing Trump of reenacting the 1939 neo-Nazi rally held there. Do you believe the Trump campaign is deliberately trying to associate itself with that? And does it even matter, considering Trump's authoritarian rhetoric?
I do not think that is what he has in mind. This is something that, Trump associates will tell you he has been talking about in every campaign since the first one, simply because he's a New Yorker and this is the big New York venue and he wants to make a splash. And, in this nationalized era of campaigns and of media, but you see both campaigns trying to get creative about the venues where they have their events. Kamala Harris being in Texas the other day, also not a swing state, but but there's the opportunity to make a splash in the media and get attention nationally, and thereby reach, millions more voters than you would simply at a regular rally with the people that you see there. So, of course, both campaigns are campaigning vigorously in all the battleground states, but we also see them going to these more unconventional venues as they just try to get people's attention, to motivate their supporters, to get that vote out, and to get people off the couch.
So what about the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times, Eugene, both which announced they will not make an endorsement in the presidential race? Post reporters published that article saying an endorsement for Harris had been written, but the paper's owner, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, quashed it. What do you make of this? Are these news organizations compromised with owners who have business before the federal government?
I mean, that we still haven't figured that out, right? There's a lot of reporting that folks are trying to do to figure out why these things happen, right? Both organizations say that is not the case, right? But when you talk to even the reporters at those organizations, they themselves have questions about why, because this is such a long-standing tradition in this country at those newspapers to do just what opinion and editorial boards have done for decades and decades. I think one thing that it speaks to when you talk to folks in those spaces is at the very best a chilling effect that they feel about what could happen if Donald Trump does what he says he would do. When he's talked about, pulling licenses for news organizations on television and going after journalists in other different ways. He's talked about that for a very long time. And so people at the organizations, the reporters, they are feeling that, and they feel like there could be a connection. We don't know, but it is different than has happened in decades past.
Hey, Molly, back to the title of your article. I mean, everyone's anxious. How long do you think we're going to be anxious? Is it going to take days for us to know the result of this election? Reminder, 2020, Tuesday voting, Saturday results.
It's certainly possible. I mean, all the same states are in play. All the same states have broadly the same procedures in place. There had been efforts over the past 4 years to streamline some of the counting procedures in those states that were largely not successful. And then there's just the closeness of it. And that is the main thing that's going to draw out the count. If this was a blowout election, we'd know right away. But because it is so likely to come down to the wire, because it could depend on something like a few thousand provisional ballots in one of these states, or even a legal challenge, it could be drawn out for much longer. And I think the important thing for people to understand is that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the election. It just means that it's very close and they are counting the votes legitimately, as carefully as possible. And we are waiting to know the answer until we are sure that the votes have all been counted. I think another thing that is likely that we saw 4 years ago is that Trump and those around him will try to sow doubt in the vote count, or even declare victory before it has actually occurred, or when it has not actually occurred. So I think it's important for people to understand that those votes may take a while to be counted, and that's just because it's a close race and they're counting them carefully.
Well, the sowing doubt part has already begun on Trump's behalf. Let's face that. Indeed. Okay, Eugene and Molly, thank you so much. Hope I see you both next weekend.